The healthcare detective Frank Lalli has written a book for Simon & Schuster about how to get affordable healthcare. Called Your Best Healthcare Now. It is available online, in-store, wherever fine books are sold. Mr. Lalli is also the health correspondent for Parade and the former editor of Money and George magazines and the senior advisor for healthcare.com, if I've got that right. And he has a topic that is near and dear to many people's hearts. Hi, Frank. How are you?
I'm doing okay, as we all are, just hanging in there. We got a topic today because it's last week we looked into COVID-19 rapid tests. And, I came away quite optimistic. I think we'll have very soon at-home tests with reliable results for as little as 15 minutes for around $5 to $10. So this week, I turned to COVID vaccines that President Trump is promising before the election. And I got to tell you, Jill, I can't be more pessimistic about that. Now, here's the hype, the reality, and the shameful profiteering by a number of drug makers feeding on the billions of dollars of federal COVID money. They may be making a vaccine, they may not be making a vaccine, but some are surely making personal fortunes. The vaccine hype comes from President Trump, and you got to remember this. President Trump is an anti-vaxxer. He's falsely linked to vaccines and autism dozens of times. Now his last shred of credibility has been destroyed by telling journalist Bob Woodward on tape that he lied to us about how deadly he knew the COVID virus was. People believed him when he lied that COVID-19 was a hoax. And now 192,000 people have died, and there are more dying every day. And now he says we'll have a vaccine, perhaps by October. Here's the truth. There are three companies that lead the race for the vaccine. First one is AstraZeneca, and it just stopped its clinical trials after a woman got a serious spinal cord viral infection after taking the vaccine. Researchers don't know if Astra's vaccine triggered the attack, but they've stopped their entire global trials until they figure that out. And if the vaccine did harm her, they'll have to discard the entire batch. The second is Moderna. Now, that's a company that has never brought a product to market, not even a cold sore cream. Its leaders are shooting for December or January, not October. So December or January, not October. That leaves Pfizer. That's the only company that could ask the FDA for an okay before the election. If that happens, Pfizer and Trump's corner-cutting warp speed team will have created a vaccine in about 8 months. Consider this. Up to now, the fastest successful vaccine was created for the mumps, and it took 4 years. So, Jill, can you see why half the public says they wouldn't take a COVID vaccine if it was available today? Can you see that point of view?
Of course, but I can also see that they wouldn't do it anyway. So I'm really interested in the perception of this. It's abundantly clear to anyone with a brain, in my view, that rapid testing is going to make the difference between things beginning to open or not. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that once you get out of the, and again, this is just my opinion, but once you get out of the echo chamber, I think that there's a ton more realism about what's going on out there than not. So
mm-hmm. There's a solid 20-25% that say they will not take a vaccine. That's period. Then there's another 25% that right now are very skeptical. Okay. Right. By the way, Trump also makes it sound as if everyone will be able to get a vaccine this year, and that's not true. Fact is, the overwhelming majority of people won't be able to get a COVID vaccine before next summer, and here's why. The leaders of 9 vaccine makers just signed a pledge to not seek FDA approval until their vaccine meets the highest standards for safety and effectiveness. That's efficacy, so safety and efficacy. Now, the pledge was meant to reassure the public and people you're talking about that they won't be rushed by political pressure. And certainly that sounds good. But the vaccine makers' fine print says that if they get outstanding early results, they can ask the FDA for emergency use authorization. It's been given so many times now, it's just initials, EUA, emergency use authorization. Now that's the same hasty okay the FDA gave to Trump's harmful hydroxychloroquine. Also, with emergency use, the vaccine would be tightly rationed to frontline healthcare workers and first responders. That would be followed by older people, people with underlying conditions, and essential workers, and sooner or later, teachers. So let's do the math. At best, there'll only be about 15 million doses available at the beginning, and each person will need to get 2 shots around 1 month apart. With nothing but very good luck, the public won't be vaccinated until next summer. That's the truth. And there's no guarantee that we'll have very good luck, largely because many companies are trying new, quicker procedures that may not work. Now, for sure, several companies are following the proven polio standard of developing the virus itself and then, quote unquote, killing it in the lab. That is, making it harmless. Then, when the harmless replica is injected, your immune system forms an army of antigens ready to annihilate COVID-19 if it ever shows up. Now, problem is, this proven polio method takes a lot of time. Astra, Moderna, and others are moving quicker by zeroing in on the spike protein that covers the actual virus cells. Now, in theory, as their vaccine's army kills the protein, it wipes out the COVID-19 as well. And I know a thing or two about this approach. My clinical trial reprogrammed my immune system to kill the protein camouflaging my blood cancer. That's called multiple myeloma. So the army went in, it killed the protein, and it also killed the underlying cancer cells. It worked for me. I've been in complete remission for 3 years. But my phase 2 trial did not work for most of us. Out of the 20 patients, everyone else but me has relapsed. And around 15 have died, including one person who died during the trial. Look, I'm grateful for every day that I've been in remission. Don't get me wrong about that. But my trial, plus the news of this Astra woman with a spinal infection, that gives me second thoughts about whether a spike protein vaccine will actually work for COVID. So, Jill, what are your thoughts about this? Am I being too pessimistic?
I think that there's an assumption here that again, once you get down to regular people, I don't really think that they expect anything. They don't expect an instant vaccine. They expect that it will be there when it's there. And in the meantime, I'm going to say this again, rapid testing is going to make a heck of a lot of difference. You know, once it's a spit test and it's easy to do at home. And there's far more common sense out there than one would imagine. Or at least that's what I'm discovering from people that I've talked to. Whether people are vaxxers or anti-vaxxers, nobody's in a huge hurry to have something that is not proven. Anyone with an animal, and a lot of people are new animal parents, excuse that word, but knows that you have to, you don't just throw something on your beloved critter, and they're not going to throw something in their system anyway. Yeah. So I can't answer the question, are you being too pessimistic? I mean, I think that you are, your information is accurate. By the way, there's something else going on that's even more alarming, and I'm not sufficiently personally conversant in how this works, but it also looks like these companies have access to data that they shouldn't have access to, just in terms of speeding the whole thing up. So I'm not.
Well, I mean, there's just. Speeds. But look,
no.
Mark me down is very clearly on this. I mean, I am optimistic about the rapid test, and I think it will make a real difference, give people confidence to be out, go out into the community, go back to work, go back to school,
which will then
and
buy
be
the
able to
time
do it
for
every day.
which will
I
then
am not optimistic about this vaccine, and warp speed makes me very nervous. But look, let's turn to the profitable side of making vaccines.
Okay.
Now, bottom line, as we know, there's no vaccine yet, but there are billions of dollars in vaccine profits without a vaccine. The New York Times reports that insiders at just 11 companies have pocketed $1 billion in the rush for a vaccine. Now, when the mafia did something reminiscent on Wall Street a couple of years ago, it was called pump and dump. The mobsters spread lies about the company's progress, they pumped up the stock price, and then they dumped their shares at wild profits. Now compare that to the guys running Vaxart. That's a company in San Francisco, which, by the way, has 15 workers, tiny little company. But it claims it's developing a vaccine pill from primates. Now, Trump's own warp speed leaders say Vaxart is exaggerating. But that hasn't stopped its hedge fund owner from collecting $200 million selling shares as the stock has gone from 35 cents to $13. And how about this one? The CEO alone of Regeneron, that's a biotech company over here in Tarrytown, New York, sold $178 million of his shares in, get this, one day in May. That is a fine day in May. And then there's Moderna. As its stock has tripled since January, with massive financing from the National Institutes of Health, insiders have sold $248 million in stock, including the chairman's investment fund. And that sold $68 million in, you guessed it, one day. Now, look, I don't know whether any of these insiders broke the law. That's not my job. I'm not making that judgment. But get this. The Vaxart CEO said, quote unquote, it's okay to make a profit from COVID vaccines as long as you're not profiteering. Well, I got a little bit of news for him. His phone is ringing. It's the SEC. And you know what? The next call may be from the California Attorney General. So look, we need a reliable vaccine in addition to the rapid test to really get back to something that's close to normal in our lives. But we're not going to get there with lies from the top or profiteering from the very drug makers that the public needs to trust to take their vaccines at warp speed.
Thank you, Frank, the healthcare detective and senior advisor to healthcare.com. Send your questions or concerns about finding affordable health care to healthcaredetective@robinhoodradio.com. Frank will try to address as many of your questions as he can on future broadcasts. Also, look for his book, Your Best Healthcare Now, available online, in-store, and on my desk.